Welcome everyone. So I'm Alison Cairns from the MGAA. So yes, welcome you all to today's MGAA market briefing. So very happy to have with us today Nathan Banfield from make sure I get it right, Reg Technologies. Who's going to share the presentation with us today. Before I do a proper intro to our presentation, just a little bit of housekeeping in terms of a few do's and don'ts. So if we do the don'ts first of all, so it would be really good if you could keep cameras and microphones off just to help us with the technology side of things. And also, can I ask that if you were going to start any AI note-taking facility, that you refrain from doing so, as we don't have everyone's permission on the call today. So that's the don'ts bits. In terms of do's, I want to encourage you, please do ask questions as we go through. If you can add them onto the chat, and then Nathan is very happy to answer those questions at the end of the session. So yeah, don't necessarily hold on to the end. If anything comes up as Nathan's going through, please add your question in there and we will ask it at the end. Also, just to let you know that we are recording the session, and tis good news for you. So if you wanted to review the recording, or for those people that registered but aren't able to attend, they'll be able to review it. So we'll send out a mail to you with a link to the recording. There'll be a copy of the slides available as well if you wanted to review those. And also there will be a link to the feedback survey. So it'd be very appreciative if you can spend the 2-3 minutes it takes to fill in the survey and provide us with some feedback. So very last thing, just to share with you that as with most of our market briefings, this one is accredited by the CII for CPD purposes. So you're able to add that onto your CPD log. So yes, that's all my housekeeping completed. Yes, final encouragement for you to, please do ask questions as we go through. So without any further today, I'm going to hand over to Nathan Banfield from Reg Technologies. I'm now paranoid I keep getting that wrong, but hopefully I've got it right. Who's going to share the presentation today, which is on the title, Cracking the Chain, RegTech's role in fair value compliance. So yes, over to you, Nathan.
Thanks, Alison. Thank you very much. And good afternoon to everyone that has taken some time out of your day to join us this afternoon. As Alison said, today's session is entitled Cracking the Chain, RegTech's role in fair value compliance. And we'll go over a little bit more about what that means in the next few slides and for the next sort of 45 minutes or so. But just to start with a quick introduction of myself, as Alison mentioned, I'm Nathan Banfield. So I'm Head of Customer Success here at Reg Technologies. Reg Technologies are a software provider and a supply member of the MGAA. Hopefully some of you on this call already know. I recognised a few of our customers on the attendee list, and Reg and its software is the Reg Network is an online agency management and compliance tool which helps our customers in streamlining a number of manual processes found within insurance businesses. Quickly on myself, I initially started my career on the broking side, but I joined Reg around 7 years ago now as head of customer success. I look after the team which ensures our customers get the most out of Reg's software offerings. And in turn, I guess this has made me passionate in aiding our users to get the most out of these type of Reg Tech solutions. So ensuring that more efficient workflows, better outcomes for our customers and also for your customers as well by utilising them. So thank you all. Let's, I guess, jump into it. And again, I guess should reiterate, if you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them at the end. So just to start today with our learning objectives, as we must do. So across today's session, we're hopefully going to look to better understand the current regulatory landscape surrounding fair value and consumer duty, including recent FCA commentary and enforcement activity. So we'll have a quick look at what's expected, some recent guidance that's been issued by the FCA. We're going to identify key compliance pain points across the distribution chain that hinder efficient oversight and regulatory compliance and adherence to those. So what is slowing everyone down in achieving consumer duty? We're going to explore how RegTech's solutions can automate this and scale sharing, acquiring and analysing of key compliance counterparty data, looking at how the technology can create more efficient workflows for you, as well as assessing the risk of doing it manually. Data silos, how they can lead to non-compliance and reputational harm and even financial harm. And then we're going to discover practical use cases of how insurance firms are implementing RegTech to meet their regulatory expectations and driving operational efficiency. So let's start, I guess, at the beginning with a brief explainer on consumer duty. I would like to think that almost everyone in this call has got a pretty good handle of it by now, but we should start at the beginning. So with the introduction of consumer duty in July 2023, the FCA set out to introduce higher and clearer standards on consumer protection. With less of a focus was put on processes that must be followed to achieve these outcomes, and a significantly deeper focus on the assessment of good outcomes for consumers. Assessing these outcomes across 4 key categories. So that's products and services, price and value, consumer understanding, and consumer support. Now, starting with sort of products and services, as everyone that's had to start to complete this work will know, there's many factors that are considered in the design of products, and the key through line during this design phase, and also when we're considering products that are already in existence and if they meet consumer duties, are they achieving the right outcomes for customers? Do they offer the protection the customer needs when the worst happens potentially or a claim is made? Then we move on to achieving fair value. So this encapsulates a large part of the goals set out in consumer duty, including assessing the target market is clearly defined with a keen focus on treatment of vulnerable customers, something we'll touch on quite a bit today, who may fall into this target market. The distribution strategy also needs to be well understood, and then the value being provided by all parts of the distribution chain is assessed and deemed fair. As we know, the guidelines provided by the FCA with regards to consumer duty are continually evolving, just to make everyone's lives easier. And even recently, as last week, I joined an FCA webinar which highlighted a number of factors which market participants should be considering or considering more deeply when achieving fair value and adhering to consumer duty. As I'll keep coming back to today, in today's presentation, the assessment of these outcomes is at the forefront of achieving this consumer duty, and these assessments need to be data-led, evidence-based, and they need to stand up to the scrutiny of the regulator should that be required. So what are these fair value assessments, and how do we go about producing them? So at its core, a fair value assessment is comparing the price of a product, the value of a product or service to the overall value it provides the customer. To do this, market participants have got to collect and monitor evidence that demonstrates that products and services represent fair value. While the production of these fair value assessments falls the responsibility of manufacturers and co-manufacturers of the products, the ability to actually assess a product's value requires input from all parties in the distribution chain. And because of this, it can be a time-consuming, resource-heavy process. Firms must have data from all members of the distribution chain to ensure that there are no excessive charges relative to the product value. These assessments that we're pulling together on products, they've got to be backed by data, documented evidence, and considering a number of factors like the product nature, its quality, its price, limitations, and target market characteristics. So collecting all that data, I guess, is just one of the challenge, and not a small one at that. But the ability to bring everything together into kind of a single assessment can really ramp up the difficulty in achieving the regulator's desired level of evidence and outcomes. So Then to add another layer to this challenge, the assessments don't stop once you've done them once. They need to be repeated to ensure they deliver fair value continually over time. Pleasingly, in that same webinar that I mentioned, the FCA one from last week, it was stated that if no material change has taken place to the product or its distribution method, then confirming with the distributors that nothing has changed since last year, for example, might be enough, which I guess is some small sort of mercy, but not in every instance. So particularly if a product has been flagged as one that has previously needed sort of remedial action, or in the past it's one that the FCA has kept a keen eye on. Example that comes to mind is something like gap insurance, which I'm sure we've all heard a bit about. These assessments, when that's the case, will need to be repeated annually. So that just increases the task at hand, I guess, the amount of work that goes into adhering to these guidelines. So just to have a quick look at some of the focus that the regulator have come back with in the last few months. So over the last few months, there's been a few pieces that have been highlighted, a number of areas where more is needed to be done to achieve the desired outcomes. There's been a real heightened scrutiny on treatment and outcomes for vulnerable customers. Firstly, it's been identified that we're not thinking widely enough when considering if a customer could be vulnerable. While some characteristics about a vulnerable customer are clear, for example, their physical disability, hearing or visual impairments, health conditions, mental health, again, not always clear and obvious to see, but can be kind of easily grouped or identified. Consideration for other possibilities need to be considered, like a customer's low resilience or difficulty coping with some financial shock, negative life events, maybe a recent bereavement or job loss, or just a lack of understanding on financial products. So it's understandable that consumers in vulnerable circumstances may have additional needs, be greater risk of harm if things go wrong. So firms are now expected to embed identification, monitoring and tailored interventions into day-to-day operations, not just in policies on paper. So in March 2025, for example, a thematic review highlighted frequent shortfalls in product design, monitoring and support for these vulnerable segments, even as firms increasingly have acknowledged the specific needs of these customers. So some areas highlighted by the FCA were where firms were unable to track a vulnerable customer across multiple product sets, leading to consumers repeatedly being asked to disclose their additional needs or personal circumstances when passed between teams. So I think it's fair to see why that could be seen as a negative outcome for a customer. Here, in this example, there's a relatively simple technological solution that can be implemented that allows the customers to be flagged within systems as potentially vulnerable, which allow for better outcomes, and depending even on the size or resource of the firm that's dealing with that customer, to be handled by a specific team with further training that could be really advantageous. So moving on to a greater focus on the complex and extended distribution chains, one that we're going to again talk a little bit more about as we go through this presentation. So the FCA have warned that we must evidence value throughout the chain, not just at the sale point. This includes scrutiny of intermediary remuneration and performance metrics, understanding and quantifying their own contribution, each fund's own contribution in the context of overall value to the customer, is something that's super important. So Consumer Duty effectively asks firms to interact with other counterparties in a chain in a different way than has been before. And so, with that increased ask, if you like, there needs to be some new processes and potentially processes that can be helped by technology solutions to achieve these goals. An example where this has already been highlighted recently is in products like income protection, critical illness cover, where a market study done by the FCA was investigating whether commission structures are causing value erosion. Where multiple intermediaries are involved, regulators expect firms to have shared data, aligned governance, and to ensure value flows throughout to the end customer. So it's a big ask on understanding that distribution chain, but it's a big focus as well. So we're going to hopefully talk you through where you can better achieve those outcomes. So moving through to board governance and outcome reporting, boards are being held to a higher standard when it comes to the reporting. The Consumer Duty mandates annual board level reports, as many of you will know, evidencing how firms can monitor the outcomes and react to any issues. Recent FCA reviews of those reports have highlighted, a variation in quality like there is in everyone's work. And the best reports had outcome-focused dashboards, MI segmentation by customer type, especially vulnerable customers, and clear sort of process mapping from the insights gained to the action taken to fix those problems. Some areas that were focused on for improvement are evidence that an appropriate amount and type of information has been shared between firms and third parties across the distribution chain. Again, that distribution chain piece. Lacking challenges from firms' governing bodies on the content of the report. The FCA has emphasised that boards and senior leaders must exhibit active oversight and accountability for consumer duty outcomes, integrating into their risk culture and strategic decision making. And then finally, non-compliance enforcement. So it's been highlighted recently. So what happens when things go wrong, or the FCA has moved from passive guidance to active supervision, using things like thematic reviews, market studies, Section 166 skilled person reviews. Firms with fall short risk fines, reputational damage, and restrictions on permissions. In serious cases, criminal prosecutions can apply. So, they are pretty serious about these things, and we need to be doing our utmost to achieve them. Demonstrating compliance with robust data and governance is non-negotiable. So, what are the challenges in the assessment process? I guess the ability to gather the data that's required from throughout the distribution chain. So we have a look at the fair value assessments and focus on the FCA at the moment. But what are some of the challenges that I commonly hear about when speaking to my customers, for example? These are manual assessments. In many cases, everything that's being done is manually. Many firms still rely on manual data collection workflows, and by this I'm talking about emails, and lots of them. Wasting time by duplicating effort, lacks of version control, audit history, and real-time oversight. So these inefficient manual methods not only slow teams down, but also increase compliance and operational risks due to poor processes. Control and lack of visibility. When these types of large data-related tasks are managed through email, you have basically almost no chance of achieving the desired outcomes. There's a lack of oversight in progress. It's hard to track what's come back and what's outstanding, and it can very quickly become a mess, which is harder to fix than almost starting all over again. Another problem we see here is uncentralized data. Here is just this is a real example that I had a conversation about the other day with someone that their renewals are still running, any renewal for policy is still running on an old underwriting platform, while new business is being written on a new underwriting platform. They haven't quite got the platform to work for new business for renewals yet. And so how is it ever going to be possible to spit out a coherent report on these kind of policies and the value that they might give if you're over two systems for the same product? So with multiple systems running concurrently, the data output is so difficult to have them to be assessed. These siloed systems and inconsistent data sources from surveys and questionnaires to sort of using spreadsheets can make it really difficult to consolidate insights. The fragmentation of this undermines governance, it disrupts reporting timeframes, and it weakens a firm's ability to assess data accurately. So other issues that we see, incomplete oversight. So if you don't have oversight of the distribution chain for the products, then it's nearly impossible to correctly assess fair value, but it can feel like a bit like a moving target you're trying to hit. So, if we look at this from the position of you're trying to gather information from distributor one, who works with maybe, they sub-broke and there's 50 distributor twos in June, and then by July they have 54, and by December they have 70. And that's just one of these, 30 companies who are sort of distributor one in this example. The numbers can pretty quickly become exponential. So how can you as a manufacturer or a co-manufacturer of a product really keep track of this? Well, there are ways to share live data now, with our counterparties, but also there needs to be an understanding, I think, an understanding that these rules are here and they apply to everyone. And if we can continue to distribute financial products in the way that we do today, then everyone in the chain needs to pick up a bit of the slack and provide their portion of the data. Problems arise from having multiple intermediaries, inconsistent data formats, and disconnected systems that make it really hard to access and share key information, both internally and externally. Without centralized oversight or effective collaboration, firms face like blind spots in commission structures, bundled products, and value delivery, increasing the risk of value leakage. And then I guess the final sort of challenge, and I don't want to be all negative, there's some good news coming after this, don't worry, but the final challenge can be described as kind of a tick box culture, if you like. You can't just get away with it. So the FCA reviews have highlighted a recurring focus on not just sort of completing processes, but rather delivering outcomes. So this tick box mindset, if you like, combined with gaps in governance and MI, limits firms' ability to evidence meaningful fair value to customers. So what is RegTech, and how can it help firms in meeting consumer duty and other regulatory requirements? So let's give a brief overview. RegTech, or regulatory technology, are softwares that are designed to streamline meeting your regulatory compliance goals as a business. Okay. When I checked, the total amount of fines issued by the FCA last year was £176 million. So anything which can help firms avoid finding their way onto that list and avoiding both financial and reputational risk is probably worth looking into as a solution. These softwares can start from as simple as using Excel, which I know we all love Excel and we spend far too much of our time on spreadsheets. But as the compliance burden on financial services firms grow, the number of softwares designed to help us meet these requirements has also increased substantially. So these RegTech solutions fall into a number of sort of broad categories. First one that I sort of think about is KYC and AML tools. It's a tool to make customer due diligence, meet financial crime requirements, and screen for sanctions. Pretty sure everyone here has the use of sanction checking software now and are able to perform credit checks on policyholders or counterparties they work with. And these are now embedded in our day-to-day business practices. But this was not always the case. And as requirements put upon firms grow, other solutions are required to effectively meet these requirements. And what I think we'll find is, like we always find, is in 5 years, there'll be a piece of technology or a solution to something that we aren't using today, and then we wonder how we ever did our job without it, right? That's just progress. That's just how time moves. Another section that RegTech can really assist with data governance and regulatory reporting. So we spoke a bit earlier about how one of the challenges is that kind of increased board level reporting, but also having all of the data in a digestible format to create those reports. So, it's another area which it can be utilized. These tools help you bring vast amounts of data together, which you have across a sort of a diaspora of different systems, and combine it so that you can take advantage and take actionable insights from it. Whenever we're talking about tech at the moment, I guess the next logical step is to talk about AI and the utilization of AI. It is a buzzword at the moment for many of us, and one to monitor how we can best utilize it. But whether these tools are there right now to achieve all the things that I'm about to sort of list out is up for debate. I'm sure there's some great tools out there that utilize AI, and if people have utilized them, then it's a great area to share knowledge. But soon enough, there will be these sorts of large language models that can help us with things like monitoring 100% of our customer interactions, across both phone calls, chat services, emails, identifying potential harms to customers in real time, like if a poor advice is given, can alert supervisors immediately if there's a breach of consumer duty or there's some risks that have emerged. track performance of how we're doing against the 4 FCA outcomes of products and services, price, fair value, consumer understanding, and consumer support. So what are the kind of key capabilities that these RegTech solutions might offer? Well, real-time monitoring. You can automatically analyze every customer interaction for potential harm. Customizable risk models, every firm here and every person on this call will have a slightly different interpretation of how they can achieve consumer duty. And that will evolve from 2025 to 2026, and by 2030, I'm sure it will be different. So the types of tools that you want to implement need to be flexible, and they need to be allowed to update with your processes and improve over time with you. They need to be able to provide outcome-based reporting. So the FCA expects it. It's an ongoing measurement. Platforms will help you track and visualize this compliance with each of your consumer duty outcomes. And also it needs to be scalable. So again, we've mentioned this, but instead of sort of doing quality assurance on a couple of calls, out of the 2%, 5%, we can do it on every single one. These tools also can help us with audit readiness. So one of the terms that I hear all the time is cleaning up the noise, right? So we have so much data from different directions and different places that it's hard to ensure that we create any kind of clear, strategic, measurable outcome from it. And so by bringing it all together, these types of tools can be critical for demonstrating compliance during FCA reviews or during those kind of producing those annual board level reports. Here's just one example that we sort of that you can think of, right? So with an AI tool, they can detect a high-risk sales call where a customer's misled potentially about products fees, provide feedback to the staff in real time to make sure they don't do it again straight away, generate automated report mapping those customer interactions to FCA outcomes. And in doing so, the firm will better be able to produce board level reports, a focus we talked about quite a few times throughout this. So that's kind of a few different RegTech solutions, AI. Now I guess to talk about Reg's own solution. So our software, the Reg Network, is another example of RegTech. So our software is an online agency management and compliance tool, and it's here to help insurance businesses automate their onboarding of new counterparties worldwide, securely put in place documents with those third parties like TOBAs, allow trade to start and to start quickly, and then monitor those counterparty relationships throughout their life cycle. So how do we do this? We do it by conducting real-time checks on large numbers of data sources. So this includes credit scores, AML, person screening through sanctions, PEPs, and adverse media, regulatory license checks for pretty much every regulator worldwide, and a number of other data points. So these data feeds are continually monitored, and we provide real-time alerts when things change to these due diligence feeds. So alerting our customers to actionable changes like the loss of a regulatory permission or severe drop in a company's credit score following their latest accounts. These real-time updates mean these changes kind of no longer come as a surprise when performing annual reviews or on your counterparties. And that is assuming that this type of repeat review process is even in place. Oftentimes when we speak to customers before using Reg, we find that those checks are not always done, that they're sort of done on the onboarding phase and then not done after that. So by automating a number of former manual processes, our customers can ensure ongoing compliance with a number of the FCA's regulations. Live data on their counterparties gives the ability to create reports and reporting, makes it much easier to have that data to hand, and it's much more actionable because it's live information, it's real time, and it's going to be able to be assessed. So potentially using RegTech for fair value assessments. So I just spoke about the Reg Network. It's a counterparty due diligence tool. So this may lead you to sort of ask how this helps specifically with fair value assessments, which is one of the focuses of today's session. So by being a network, one of which currently we've got 4,500 insurance businesses that are registered. And one which is known for quite a while in the market as a place where documents are securely exchanged and completed, we decided that our tool could be extended to perform fair value assessments or specifically focus on the data collection from other distributors in the chain. So to do this, we've got some specific and inherent advantages. As I mentioned, we're known for digital document exchange, specifically in insurance space. We also have a large database of active users in compliance and agency management roles. So when you're issuing something through our system to your counterparties via the Reg network, we've seen firsthand the sort of impressive response rates as compared to sort of email comms or doing it the old-fashioned way. So I guess the question is, how does this work in reality? So our customers are able to create any number of templates, templated documents directly within the network. These can be built from scratch within our tool, or they can be built using existing documentation. So you don't need to start again for these documents. And what they can do is they can, of course, contain form fields. We're building forms for capturing the responses from these counterparties in the distribution chain. But they can also be enriched with the existing data that we hold on the companies, including but not limited to their name, address, company number, regulatory number, as well as much more. So this helps ease the burden on the recipients, who we know are receiving not just one, but hundreds of these requests on a fairly regular basis. So anything we can do to make life easier for the recipient and allow them to still share the data, we've got to see as a win. Once you've designed and created the digital forms, they can be issued to recipients in bulk instantly. The ability to select a number of different recipients and distribute to any number of forms with no limits on sort of usage or charges per exchange. The recipients can also be grouped using something that we call tags, so should a certain group require a specific form based on maybe a particular product type or usage, it's easily achievable to sort of identify that cohort, select all, and fire off these assessments. So we called this market briefing cracking the chain, and we know that capturing data from further down the distribution chain is a real challenge. The Reg network allows you to temporarily give recipients of your assessments, of your forms, access to those same document exchange features which I've just talked about. So what does this mean? It allows them to forward the fair value assessment, your fair value assessment in your format, which is important to distributor 2, and in theory for them to send it to distributor 3 and distributor 4 if you have a complex distribution chain. This is an area where a specifically designed software for a specific problem shines when compared to using an email or even standard survey creation tool. It's something that's just not possible elsewhere. So once your forms have been distributed and completed, you can capture secure digital signatures, which form sort of part of the sign-off process. You're able to analyze the results, starting from being easily able to see your progress. So you can see instantly the completion percentage of any batch that's been issued. If you've sent 100 of these, you'll be able to see what percentage has been returned. It also lets you pull off a report on an individual basis, so you can see by sort of recipient what their status is. And you can also use our system to help you chase these forms and receive a higher completion rate, if you like. You can issue bulk reminders, alerts, messages to those firms which have not completed your forms. So once you're happy that you've received all the responses you're likely to get, as we all know, we're never getting 100% of these things back. You will be able to analyze the results in bulk. We produce a single output spreadsheet with label columns that includes every answer from every form you issue. This also tells you which distributor level it came from, either 1, 2, 3, 4. The single output is a game changer when requirements to combine these fair value assessments across multiple other data sets is required to fully build out the assessment of a product. We know from conversations with many of my customers that the assessment of data comes back in countless different formats if you do it via maybe email. So you get email, Excel, Word docs, PDFs, survey tools, and combining this can be a really tiresome and manual exercise. So using something like the Reg Network, which puts everything in one format, makes it really easy for your recipients both to complete the form and even easier for you to assess the results when they come back, and to incorporate it with that with other data from your other systems as well. So just a sort of a brief example of how this has worked in real life. I had a customer with around 250 sort of distributors, if you like, and they moved from doing it via email to sending it via the network. Firstly, the response rate over the first kind of 4 weeks was up around 67%, which is pretty strong, over 250. But also they found that they had almost another 20% of that again had come from further distributors down the chain, which they just would not have got information from doing it any other way. They would have had to ask, and it would have just got lost in the ether, if you like. So that's just an example of how the Reg Network can help with those kind of fair value assessments. So I guess just to recap where we're at and what the sort of benefits are of implementing RegTech solutions. So, hey, there's some cost involved. We all know that. We're all aware of that. But I think should they be properly utilized and onboarded into the business and incorporated with existing workflows, the efficiency saving over the long run should very easily far outweigh the costs. So let's look at what the benefits are. So, we can enhance transparency and customer outcomes. So we've got clear and auditable insights into the value across the distribution chain, can support faster evidence-based decision making. So that enhances the customer outcomes and demonstrates that we're treating customers fairly. Frees up time and resources to make more strategic decisions and work. Now, utilize our people to make decisions that can't be done by a simply automated system. Spending people's time going and manually collecting data is just not an efficient use of our staffing hours, if you like. And by doing so, it will help everyone meet those FCA expectations faster. And finally, it enables proactive risk management, real-time monitoring, like I said, with our system and many others, like the AI phone monitoring systems that can find out should things happen in real time, if you've got compliance gaps, if your staff are issuing poor advice, etc. It just enables you to be proactive and nip things in the bud before they get too far down the road and you have to take big, heavy remedial action to fix things. And with that, I'll just quickly recap those learning objectives. As we've looked at today, hopefully we've helped in understanding a little bit around what's going on in the regulatory landscape for fair value and consumer duty. We've identified some pain points, quite a lot of pain points. I feel like we spent a lot of time talking about what's difficult. But again, these are relatively new challenges having come in July 2023. And over time, I'm sure everyone will get a better handle of them and we'll be able to more effectively manage them, probably through the incorporation of RegTech solutions, right? Assess the risks of manual processes, explore how RegTech can automate better workflows, and then a quick look at a couple of sort of practical use cases of how people have implemented it. So I would like to say thank you. We're a little early on the finishing time, but I'd like to say thank you to everyone that's spent the last 40 minutes or so with me, and invite any questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was very interesting and definitely highlighted some of the challenges that we have trying to do these things manually. I have got a question for you, and the question is how quickly can you set up the support at your end?
So implementation of our software can be very, very quick, realistically, as long as we can work with the customer and have data on who their counterparties are. We can get them set up in our system in a matter of weeks. We would look at 4 weeks as being a very achievable time frame, assuming customers can work closely with us in that setup phase.
That's very impressive compared with the time spent with the manual version. So
Hopefully, yeah.
at the moment, there's not any questions, but I don't want to assume that no one is typing. So if I do a few thank yous, what that will do is give people time to finish typing if they have. So yeah, thank you ever so much to Nathan for his time and putting that together and sharing the information with us. And yes, and thank you to everyone who has joined. So I believe, I think, is it the next slide that has contact details in it? There we go. And a picture of Nathan, and we did comment before, looking exactly the same in the photo as he does today, which sometimes isn't always the case, is it? With
Concerned I might
photos?
have been wearing the same shirt, but I think I could have checked the presentation before I got dressed this morning, eh?
It's consistency. So yes, all the contacts, the details there, and some handy QR codes. So when I send the link to the recording, which will be on in our member area in the on-demand section, a copy of the slides will be there as well. So any questions that you haven't asked but come to mind later on, you'll be able to get in contact or use one of the QR codes to find out more. So yeah, so thank you everyone for joining, and thank you Nathan. And my last ask is, when I send out the feedback form, all feedback is gratefully received, because it does help us make sure that these sessions remain as useful as possible for those that attend. So yes, thank you to everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.